Test subject 117 has resulted in failure.
Morbius is a new Sony superhero origin story about Doctor Michael Morbius, a man who injects himself with bat genes to become the Batman. To become Morbius. And as you may have heard, this movie did break all kinds of records at the box office. Whereas Avengers Endgame made a respectable $3 billion US, Morbius flew in and made $300 billion Morbius dollars. But even though this film did become a massive financial hit, even though every person on Earth did go see it 5 or 6 times, I'd argue that it still isn't exactly a full-on success. See, despite Morbius selling 20 morbillion tickets in its opening weekend, once the headlines simmered down and people actually started to see the film, the general consensus quickly started to turn for the worse. People just weren't too pleased with the quality they got compared to the quality they had been expecting. I mean, most common reactions that I saw people express were essentially this, and this, and this, and this. Yeah, so mostly Morbius became a laughingstock of the internet that everybody was making fun of. There was already some of that based on the trailers, but once the movie came out, it was all over. Oh look, I went to see Morbius and there's just one other guy here. Oh look, the theater didn't even bother turning off the lights for Morbius. Oh look, I had 2 tickets to Morbius in my car and someone broke in and left 4 more. Oh, this movie was so good that it cured my insomnia. Thank you, Morbius. And having finally seen the movie myself, I can indeed understand where that demeaning reaction is coming from, because the movie, across many of its main movie-making pillars, is pretty bland and boring. The title character is as fascinating as my carpet, the story and events are so shallow it's like they just want to be over, and overall, Morbius feels like it's 2 decades past its time. If there is a cinematic experience that's made to be the butt of jokes, it's this one. And so today, let's look deeper into some of those main pillars of cinema that Morbius dropped the ball on. The hero, the scenes, the feel of the whole thing. If you don't want to make it easy for the internet to make fun of your movie, here's a few key things to keep in mind. Oh, and also, because I am still kinda jealous of all the money made by Morbius, I'll be once again shouting out a Filmento ally from the past. But I'll do that after we first talk about the hero, so no need to skip just yet. The reason Michael Morbius himself became an easy target online is because he's someone that heroes and superheroes especially cannot be, an unspecial, unmotivated blank shell. The first part of this is that there's nothing uniquely special about Morbius to make him stand out as a character among all these others. Essentially, his signature gist is that he's a brilliant medical doctor, which is never proven. We learn that he's a doctor in the very first scene by way of him saying it.
You need a doctor?
I am a doctor.
After that, we see a flashback where young Morbius is joined at a hospital by another kid who apparently just dies right away.
Hey, yo, what the
And then Morbius saves him by fixing a machine.
It took a team of scientists to build that machine and you fixed it with a ballpoint pen.
Which again doesn't really help because it makes him more like a brilliant technician than medically skilled. And after that, all the Dr. Morbius does is the same kind of fairy dust. He saves dying patients by just injecting them with a sedative. He makes genetic breakthroughs by just sitting in front of a computer. I mean, his biggest achievement is inventing artificial blood.
Development of artificial blood has saved more lives than penicillin,
which we never actually see him invent or modify or do anything about. The only real visible doctor work Morbius does is cutting open a tiny animal, which I did back in high school, so he's not really a brilliant medical doctor as much as he's a movie character posing as one.
I am a doctor.
And why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the f up.
There is also his unique blood disease condition, but mostly it's more the same. It's never fully explained what that condition is or how it works and why it's so dangerous or how exactly our bad genes gonna magically make his blood better outside of whatever generic terminology.
Vampire genes into your DNA would allow your body to produce those same anticoagulants.
Yes. It would be a cure.
It's just like, yeah, it's this terrible rare blood condition that's very terrible.
We don't have much time left.
There's something missing from our DNA.
This could be our last chance.
Like a piece of a puzzle.
Which again seems as fake as Morbius's role as a doctor. Meaning that really the only unique specialty about Morbius is that he's disabled, which is useful to mine sympathy from the audience, but not quite strong enough alone to build a hero that can stand out. On top of that, Morbius is also very unmotivated because his goals are weak or non-existent. Essentially, his initial goal is to find the cure for his condition, but like I mentioned, not only is the condition very generically fake, it's also never established why he needs a cure. We never see what it is that Morbius wants to do that his condition keeps him from. We don't see him wanting to run but being unable to. We don't get any kind of character-shaping dream like the way Arthur Fleck wants to be a comedian more than anything else. No, Morbius just wants a cure to help people and to not be disabled anymore. Not for some specific endgame reason, but because, you know.
It's what it is.
What it is?
Yes.
And once that goal is reached and Morbius becomes super buff as intended, then there's nothing. He has all these powers, but nothing to use them for. He doesn't need them to get money for a car to impress a girl. He doesn't need them to catch his uncle's killer. He doesn't need them to destroy his own past mistakes. No, he kinda just waits and hangs around until the plot advances to a point where he can start reacting to things with his powers.
Got a couple more questions for you.
Meaning that Morbius overall is an unmotivated passive hero pushed by the plot. And on top of that, Morbius's personality is also very weak and reserved and small. For example, when he starts testing out his powers, he does it in the safety of his lab, which isn't exciting or interesting, it's boring.
I've even developed a form of echolocation. Bat radar for the uninitiated.
Got a badass over here.
And boring's the kind of person Morbius is. He doesn't see conflict, he doesn't get himself into situations, he's not making big choices driven by strong willpower. He does occasionally do something, yeah, but not when compared to Tony Stark, for example. Tony's always getting himself into situations and conflict, he's always the driving force in the room. When he tests out his new superhero skills, he takes it to the moon.
Record for fixed-wing flight is 85,000 feet, sir.
Records are made to be broken. Come on!
This is a strong, larger-than-life personality that audiences find interesting. This is a weak, wimpy personality that very easily puts them to sleep.
Best not to be outside when school gets out.
A strong-willed, loudmouth physical weakling will always be more exciting than a buff dude who drifts with the wind.
We need to get you out of here, in whatever way possible.
Maybe this is where I belong. If I'm in here, then nobody else dies.
You're
not capable of killing that.
And when you put together this holy trinity of non-uniqueness and passiveness and weakness of personality, you get a superhero who's not super or a hero. He's an empty canvas that's very easy for the internet to paint over. But if you need one more outside the box example to put this in a nutshell, here's one that does my shoutout at the same time. Look at this blue bun. This is a real character constructed from all necessary elements. It's very uniquely special, because when you press it, it changes your internet location to anywhere around the world. And it also has a powerful motivation to do so that you can unlock all geographically divided content in streaming services to see everything, plus so that you can surf the web without being seen by evil forces.
God damn it!
And it also has a strong willpower personality, because right now it's willing to serve you at a discounted price to prove itself. This bun, worthy of its own movie, is called Surfshark, the #1 hero VPN. You already know why you need it, so all you need to know is that you can get it for 83% off with 3 months for free by using code FILM at the link below. And also, for every use of the code, I'll be donating 1,000 Morbius bucks to charity. Donating meaning pledging, meaning that I'm not gonna pay anything to anyone. The reason the contents of the movie became easy pickings for the internet is because in many ways those contents are lacklusterly, non-entertainingly low effort. The first big issue is that mostly the movie isn't made of scenes but rather moments of information. The most obvious manifestation of this being exposition, of which there is a lot. Whether it's generic talk of the condition's technicalities,
Until they find it. The only way to stay alive is an oil change 3 times a day.
or it's talk of Morbius's unseen achievements,
established himself as the world's leading authority on blood-borne diseases.
or it's talk of Morbius's project,
Viruses insinuating their nucleic acid onto our...
or whether it's Morbius literally talking exposition to himself.
Artificial blood keeps me stable for 6 hours, but that window is growing shorter. Artificial blood won't work.
There's way too much of characters explaining things. Nobody wants to listen to a Wikipedia page of a movie. They want to see and experience the movie. But aside from pure exposition, this also means scenes that exist solely to move us to the next step in the story. When Morbius goes to the dangerous bats in the beginning, he doesn't need to survive their attack somehow. We cut away and then he just has them. When he goes to ask his friend for help, he doesn't need to convince him or anybody else.
And it has to be done in international waters.
We just cut to him having what he needs. When he conducts his experiment, he doesn't need to do anything. He just waits for the computer and then allows himself to be injected, and there you go. Now he's Morbius.
It's Morbin time.
You know, scenes are not treated as their own entertaining challenges that the hero needs to overcome. They're just brief moments of information that move us to the next one.
Some friends I brought back from Costa Rica.
And if most of your movie is like that, then the only reason to watch it is to see it end. Even when there occasionally are scenes about situations to overcome, there's still the issue that things are way too easy. All Morbius has to do to save this girl is give her a sedative.
That was easy.
All he needs to do to break out of jail is jump out the window.
That was easy.
All he needs to do to convince his lab partner to help is ask once.
Okay.
That was easy.
All he needs to do to take over this criminal laboratory is play around.
Introduce the phalanges. Remember the carpals?
If you don't treat your obstacles as real obstacles, odds are that the scenes themselves won't feel real either. But on top of information and challenge, there's also other types of issues, like some scenes being isolated events without a larger through line. For example, when Morbius conducts the experiment that turns him into Morbius, what happens is that the crewmen attack him out of fear and then he kills all of them, which is cool, but still quite artificially forced. Cause why does the crew of a shipping vessel carry rifles? Why are they all so eager to fight as if they're soldiers instead of sailors? Like, this whole situation feels very random.
One survivor of 8 bodies running IDs right now, but apparently they all shop at the same mercenary supply store. 8 dead mercs on a boat. Pretty sure they were guilty of something and happy to have them off the water.
How do you think that looks?
And as an example of how a through line could fix this, what if you use the idea that Morbius' friend is financially mixed up with the wrong people?
Oh, I won a hand of cards against some Russian gentlemen.
Apparently they found his luck improbable.
What if the Russian mob is tired of the friend's games and they're finally coming for their money that funded Morbius' project? Now, Morbius wouldn't be fighting random armed crewmen, he'd be fighting the antagonistic force that's been in play all along. Now, Morbius wouldn't be learning about a random criminal lab randomly in a cafe.
Come on, man. We gotta get back to the lab.
He'd be taking over the lab left behind by the Russians as he deals with them. You know, you have the same scenes, but there's this longer underlying through line to tie them together and make them organic. And to build on that, most scenes also lack a fire burning underneath. What's the big rush with Morbius' experiment? He's been living with this condition for decades.
We don't have much time left.
Why?
What's the big rush with the friend getting the powers? He's got nothing specific to use them for.
I need it. I can't live like this any longer.
Why?
Overall, things don't happen out of urgent necessity like Norman Osborn doing his test before getting pushed out forever. No, things just happen. And as one last issue, I'd also say that scenes about fighting lack the thing to fight for. Morbius' clashes with his friend, for example. It's not like, oh, the friend is about to use his new powers to kill this Russian mobster who has always demeaned him and Morbius has to stop him from becoming a murderer. No, the friend kills some guy for no reason and then they fight over different opinions and more people get killed in the process. Even at the end, they're not fighting for anything tangible. There's no Bucky here. Morbius isn't, for example, trying to stop the friend from killing every bystander he sees. They're just fighting out their differences until one of them goes down. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that pretty much all scenes in this movie fall under one or more of these issues. Some scenes are better than others, but none of them are built into anything genuinely good. They mostly exist just to end. And when the internet senses low quality from low effort like this, they pounce. Perhaps the biggest reason why Morbius became such an easy target for snarky online remarks is the fact that it feels 2 decades past its time. It does a lot of things that just don't fly anymore. There are some very superficial examples of this, like how the CGI is really bad. Morbius looks more fake in the dark than Davy Jones did in sunlight in 2006. On top of which, we have a mandatory childhood problems flashback that's really cringy and boring. On top of which, even Morbius' transformation journey is quite a bit like Norman Osborn's, except a lesser version, like I mentioned.
2 weeks. We'll have lost the contractor quest, and Oscorp will be dead.
We don't have much time left.
Why?
But a more major example of this is the hero's incredibly shallow key relationships, of which there are 2. One of the key side characters is Morbius' lab assistant, who is nothing more. She doesn't have her own agency or motivation. She doesn't have her own life with her own problems. We have no idea who she is as a person outside of Morbius' story. Her only reason for existence is to be there to say yes to Morbius.
Can you do that for me?
Yes, I can, but you didn't answer my question. What is it?
And be a nice looking trophy for him to win. At the end, she doesn't fight or even help in the fight. She just dies so that Morbius can be angry. A love interest like this might have passed the BS meter in early 2000s, but not anymore. Same with Morbius' childhood friend, who is a bit better due to him struggling with his disability like Morbius, but that's about it. We don't know anything about his life outside of Morbius. Apparently he's rich, but never mind what that means outside of being able to fund Morbius' project. Apparently he has trouble with gambling, but never mind cause it goes nowhere. Apparently he wants powers, but without anything to do with them. He's not trying to take revenge on specific bullies who have kept him down. There's not enough here to realistically make him hate people as a whole. He just starts killing random guys from club douchebags to police officers. After which he moves to killing people close to him and Morbius. Not accidentally in the heat of the moment or something, but just because he's the villain.
Tell Michael, you tell him I'm gonna kill as many as I want.
A very terrible early 2000s villain who exists only to be stopped by the hero. Aside from key relationships, other characters are also affected by the issue that they're not people as much as they're embodiments of the plot. For example, there's this pair of detectives investigating the murders on the ship who immediately, for no reason, get a major hard-on for Morbius.
You also work at the Horizon lab with Doctor Michael Morbius.
As in, these detectives see weird bodies beside a lab site and then right away get the idea that, oh yeah, the disabled guy must have turned into a super killer.
Why do you ask?
You've been looking for a cure for your condition your whole life, right? I mean, you've pretty much tried everything.
Crazy experiments?
Yeah, you're coming with us.
What? I'm out, man.
Like, no, the only reason they're suspicious of Morbius is because that's the plot. They don't do detective work as much as they find excuses to move things forward. And it's not just plot, it's how a lot of events and instances overall feel artificially generated. You know, we have kids bullying disabled kids for no established reason. We have police breaking into civilian apartments without any kind of warrant or probable cause. We have prison visitors bringing stuff in their pocket. We have ship crewmen instantly using lethal force on another human as if they already know what happened to him.
Look out, it's a Morbius.
I'm not saying this stuff can't happen, but I am saying it needs to be realistically justified. Like, if you want to explore the dark side of being disabled, then do it. Have a road rage incident where a truck driver honks at Morbius and his friend for crossing the road on a red light because they were too slow to cross on a green. That I can see. I understand why the driver is being a douche. I understand why the situation sucks. I understand why after years of this, the friend would begin to lose himself to rage given the chance. But older kids bullying a disabled kid for no evident reason whatsoever, that just looks and feels awkward. The audience might have been more blind to this stuff 2 decades ago, but the internet has put a stop to that. You simply cannot get away with this kind of artificial BS anymore. And if you choose to try nonetheless, just like with Morbius, social media will be out for blood.